Watching WLAE-TV, Channel 32 in New Orleans, in partnership with Louisiana Public Broadcasting. It's been said that Tiger Stadium is the loudest football stadium in the country. Of course, some of the fanfare is generated by great plays. But if you listen closely, it becomes very clear much of the excitement is orchestrated by the Golden Band from Tiger Band.
It's a total thrill to go out in front of 91,000 people and just hear them around you. It's an experience that can't be described.
The 325-member organization is at the top of its game, recognized by band directors as the top band in the Southeastern Conference in 1997. The John Philip Sousa Foundation has named LSU the winner of the Sutler Intercollegiate Marching Band Trophy for 2002. The award goes to the band with the highest musical standards and the most innovative routines over a period of several years.
We all knew that the Tiger Marching Band was something very, very special. It's just terrific to have that kind of validation from the people in the profession who look at bands all day long and coach bands all across the country say, well, that's the best band. That's the one that we want to hold up as the exemplar of a great marching band.
The standards are raised every time we step on the field. Every time they hand us new charts and new music, every time a new show is presented for us, the standards are raised individually and as a group.
It's putting it all together, knowing that you have to play the music well, knowing that you have to be in a certain place at a certain time, knowing that your step size has to be perfect, staying with the group, making the entire thing look good and not just worrying about yourself.
The band had an added incentive to make sure everything went well for its homecoming game. Country music star Lee Greenwood would perform one of his hits with the band. The students had their usual 4 practice sessions to get everything right before game day. On game day, the band got its chance to run through its music and steps a few times, but only once with Greenwood. And then it was showtime.
An American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
We try to work them hard enough that they'll get it, even if it takes them a little longer. After this rehearsal's over, you can't do any more. You just got to sit back and watch it now. We hope that it'll be at the level that we expect it to be.
It's like being an expectant parent and the birth of a newborn. And there's the anticipation and yet an unsettledness of what's going to happen. And when you pull it off, there's a euphoria there.
The band pulls it off largely because it has major incentives.
We all get tired from practice and stuff all week long, but you know, we get our energy from looking around, seeing all the purple and gold around and all the tailgaters and family and friends coming to see you, and it gets you pumped up and ready to go.
The Tiger Band began including patriotic and spiritual music in its repertoire after terrorists flew 2 planes into the World Trade Center in September of 2001. The stadium went silent after a performance of Amazing Grace.
Oh, it was incredible. At least half the people in the stands were crying. You know, it was a very emotional experience, I think, for everyone involved.
Music has a fabulous power to create an energy and a great love for this subject that can communicate with an awful lot of people.
While the band helped Tiger fans endure the tragic events of September 11th, the university had a big reason to celebrate, an invitation to the Sugar Bowl. It meant extending the marching band's duties by a couple of weeks. 4 days after Christmas, students loaded into 6 buses and headed to New Orleans to prepare for the big event. The students were given $98 each to buy food during their 4-day trip, with the university picking up several meals. Some were lucky enough to get free snacks on the bus.
Do y'all like some brownies? This is my birthday brownie stuff. It's good stuff. Y'all want some brownies?
Once they arrived at their hotel, only 10 at a time could take the elevator to their rooms.
One more. Come on.
Many chose to take the stairs rather than endure the wait for a ride. Within a couple of hours, band members were taken to a high school football stadium to begin 3.5 days of practice. Within a matter of minutes, it all started coming together. On the morning of the Sugar Bowl, the band got one last chance to practice, this time in the Superdome. And there were still some last-minute kinks to work out.
By the time we get to the national anthem, and at that time you need to just stand very solemn, okay? At attention.
Remember how we measured you off yesterday? We didn't hit that as well today. That spacing was not as good as it should have been.
By game time, it was obvious. All of the practice had paid off. While halftime is when all eyes and ears are on the band, the group's rally cry to football fans and the team were evident throughout LSU's Sugar Bowl win. A win the band helped to inspire.
Each time there's a specific down that comes up, the band has a routine that they go into, and the players know that, and they hear it. It energizes them clearly. They love being rewarded when they make a great stop with the music, when they make a great play, when they make a first down.
While the Tiger Band has enjoyed tremendous success in recent decades, it came from very humble beginnings. There were only 11 members of the band when it started out in 1893, the same year the university played its first football game.
They probably didn't have much training. They all got together to play, and it really just fell apart at their first performance because they hadn't rehearsed enough, and they didn't feel secure enough, and when they all started playing at one time, it went in all different directions, and they just had to stop their performance.
The university was still in the early years of rebuilding both its facilities and its student body. Fire destroyed the old LSU campus near Alexandria that William Tecumseh Sherman opened in 1860, before going off to become a Union general during the Civil War. After the fire, students were housed in a deaf and blind school in Baton Rouge. A short time later, they moved to the Pentagon Barracks site near the state capitol. The move thrust the university into a lot of debt. The financial noose tightened in 1873 when Governor William Pitt Kellogg cut off state funding to LSU because the university failed to comply with federal guidelines for admitting black students. Consequently, the population at LSU dropped from almost 200 students before the Civil War to only about a dozen. To help overcome money problems, LSU President David F. Boyd pressed for a merger between his school and the University of Louisiana in New Orleans. Boyd got his wish, and the student population immediately increased to more than 180 students. As LSU grew, so did interest in a band. In 1893, students formed the organization. The director, Ruffin Pleasant, a young student who would go on to become a governor of Louisiana.
He was very organized, a very disciplined type of individuals that when he called the band together, he wanted them there on time. They would practice very strenuously. He wanted them to be able to perform. So apparently he was a born leader, well organized, and very intelligent.
Pleasant's band gradually got more comfortable with performing. The next issues were money and instruments.
They would get on the corners of 3rd Street and perform. And they would advertise to eat at Ollie's or shop at Godchaw's or visit this place as advertisements. They would make money not only for wearing advertisements on their front and their back, but they would also pick up nickels and pennies and quarters and dimes and dollars from interested fans, from interested citizens.
Pleasant graduated in 1896, leaving the band in the hands of Professor W.B. Clark. The organization made great strides during Clark's reign, performing during the New Orleans Mardi Gras parades, during halftime shows when LSU played against Tulane in New Orleans, and at the State Fair in Shreveport.
Mr. Clark, at the beginning of the century, he was blind. I don't know. It was unbelievable what he did with the band at the time he was here. He was here on 2 different tenures. He was here early, and then he came back as band director later on. He had to be a really interesting person.
Clark marched and played with the band despite his blindness. By then, several dozen students were in the band, and it was quite proficient. It had established a sophisticated military look in its new uniforms. After all, LSU was a military school.
It was a very drab gray with a purple stripe.
With the move to the present site and an enrollment that had jumped to just under 2,000, it was becoming obvious that LSU was destined to become a great university. But the quality of the band improved at a gradual pace until the election of Huey Long as governor of Louisiana in 1928. The flamboyant governor worked hard to improve the state, building roads and bridges, including the Mississippi River Bridge in Baton Rouge. He also began construction on the new state capitol. But the governor also liked to play, and one of the things he enjoyed playing with most was the LSU band. Long decided he would turn the band into a showpiece for the state. His first order of business, hire a new band director. He found one at one of his favorite hangouts in New Orleans, the Roosevelt Hotel.
Huey Long really enjoyed the musical performances of Castro Carrazzo. So one evening, he was there. He sent his bodyguard to the stage and asked Mr. Carrazzo to join him at his table. Professor Carrazzo, as he was called, came to the table. Huey Long told him, and I quote directly from Castro Carrazzo, "You are now the band director at LSU. Come with me, we're returning to Baton Rouge."
The men returned to Baton Rouge, and the governor reportedly ordered Carrazzo to call LSU President James Monroe Smith at 3 o'clock that morning. That's right, 3 o'clock that morning, to tell him to fire Alfred A. Wickbolt the next day. Carrazzo made the call. Of course, Long believed Carrazzo could improve the sound of the band, but that wasn't enough.
He wanted to have the largest band in the country in numbers. So he had someone to do a survey, and they found out that some band, I think it was in the Big Ten Conference, had a band of 225.
Long wasn't satisfied until he had more than 225 members in LSU's band. It didn't seem to matter how well the band members could play their instruments.
They would give the big guys the big horns. That would be the sousaphones and the baritones. They would give the little guys the oboes and the flutes and the clarinets. And they would merely march around holding the instruments. They couldn't play a note. But it was the big show, and not at that time the sound.
Once he had the band in place, Long wanted it well equipped.
He would have a session of the legislature and said, we need new band uniforms at LSU. We need new instruments for LSU. If you don't provide them, we'll raise your taxes.
Not only did Long want uniforms, he dictated exactly what kind of uniforms he wanted.
Huey Long wanted to make it a very showy band, and the colors were purple and gold. So he asked the band director to go out and let's get some purple and gold and put some show and put some brightness in this and pep it up.
Long didn't stop there. He co-wrote music for the band with Carrazzo, sometimes waking Carrazzo up at 2 or 3 in the morning.
I wrote the 2 songs with Huey Long. One is Touchdown for LSU and Darling of LSU, and I also wrote the fight song.
Mr. Carrazzo told me this. And he would say, get your pen and paper, write this down. I've got this new song. And he whistled on the telephone, Touchdown for LSU, which the band uses as the opening of every football game at LSU. He whistled the Darling of LSU, when we used to have LSU Darling.
Long also helped write the LSU Cadets March.
He never did any correcting on his paper. No changes, nothing.
Once the governor had the band director, the band members, the uniforms, and the music, they were ready to hit the road.
Huey would be out in front of the band on the right side, greeting people and just enjoying himself tremendously. Sometimes he'd run interference for us or shout instructions to the policemen to get the crowds out of the way and that kind of stuff.
Long also looked out for band members individually when they traveled. Lou Williams remembers an occasion when the band spent the night at the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans while waiting to perform at a game between Tulane and LSU.
I think I mentioned something about some of the boys wanting to have lunch or something, and he said, by the way, Seymour, go downstairs and get me 500 $1 bills and get somebody to pass them out to the band boys and cheerleaders and anybody else that looks hungry. He was so good to us as members of the band that he was pretty much of a hero to the band members, and I'm sure to the football players.
Even after Long went to Washington as a U.S. Senator and Lou Williams graduated from LSU, Long still helped to manage the band. Lou recalls one telephone call from Long when the band was preparing to go up to Nashville for a game against Vanderbilt. He said,
how long would it take you to get ready to go to Nashville with us? I want to divide the band into 2 bands and let you lead one of them and the other drum major lead the other one.
Within hours, Lou, the senator, and the band were on a train headed for Nashville. Long would maintain his close ties to the LSU band up until he was assassinated in 1935. By then, the LSU band had all of the physical materials needed to succeed, but a political cloud reportedly hung over Professor Carrazzo's head.
He said the night that Huey P. Long, or the evening, was shot, he said he received a call the next morning from the university and was informed that he was no longer the band director.
As it turned out, Carrazzo would remain at the university for another 5 years. He would even build a new band hall and incorporate twirlers and the drum majorettes in the performances. He would also direct his band during a performance in the Sugar Bowl. However, Carrazzo was never comfortable again as LSU's band director, telling people politics cost him his job.
It was purely, in my opinion, that Castro Carrazzo was hired by Huey Long. He was pretty much controlled by Huey Long. He was funded by Huey Long. that when Huey Long went, they disassociated anybody that was connected in with Huey Long.
Carrazzo was replaced by Arthur M. Culpepper, who tried to maintain the same size band that Carrazzo had, but it was not to be. Many of the young men who would have ended up in the band were instead called to duty into World War II. That's when females were invited to join the band. While fewer students were in the band for various reasons, the organization continued to improve.
When you got into early stages of World War II in the 40s, high school band music was beginning to improve. People were being properly trained, graduating from schools with degrees in music education. And so yes, the quality improved when you added, not just because you added females, but because they'd had better training than the ones in the 30s did, than the guys did. And so from there on, they kept girls in the band.
As the World War ended and both women and men continued their interest in the band, it opened the door to more bands at LSU.
So now you had the premier band would be the concert band. The second level would be the varsity band, and then the general band would be the military band. They would audition students from the military band for the concert band. The students who won out in the auditions then performed in the concert band.
With the increase in the number of bands on campus, there was more emphasis on the quality and leadership of the organization. L. Bruce Jones took over in 1946, adding more professionalism to the organization.
He ruled it with an iron hand, but he was an extraordinary mind, and he was a wonderful musician. Everyone knows that he made the department a training base for music education students, which prior to his time here, that had not been, and he was in the job 14 years.
Jones' concert band traveled throughout Louisiana and Mississippi giving performances. The marching band also stepped up its pageantry on the football field. And then, the band department suffered a major setback. A fire practically leveled the band hall, destroying more than 100 instruments and band uniforms that were less than a year old.
That was a devastating loss as far as musical instruments, music, collections of band paraphernalia that was never replaced.
Within months, the band had new instruments and uniforms, and the university rushed to build a new band hall, a facility the university is now looking for money to replace.
They rehearse outdoors if it's raining or if it's hot. If it's cold, no matter what the conditions are, the group is rehearsing outdoors. And that's because they cannot physically fit in this building.
There were other new additions to the band as well. A new band director, Tom Tyra. He introduced a new attraction, the Golden Girls, in 1959, then known as the Ballet Corps. And then came Bill Swore. In 1970, his band was named the All-American College TV Band.
Swore was here at the time when the Tiger Marching Band won the only college marching band contest that was ever held. And it catapulted the LSU Marching Band into national visibility instantly.
He developed that famous pregame, the one that everyone tries to sing and sing that goes bum, bum, ba-dum. Well, in August of 1964, he sat at his desk and composed that opening pregame show, which is used in every pregame of every LSU home football game.
The visibility of the Tiger Band continues to increase with the recent addition of a second Tigerama concert in 2000. Both shows are a sellout. 2,600 people pay about $6 to see the band and elements of the band on stage.
The audience is able to be right there and kind of be absorbed into the excitement of the music and the performance of the girls. You sort of feel like that you're a part of the show.
There's a saying in this business that the frustration quotient to being a band director is very high, and it's very frequent. And the gratification quotient to being a band director is very infrequent, but when it occurs in a peak experience that makes you feel good, that gratification quotient is so high that it carries you from one of those to the next one, which may be a ways off.
The last few decades have been a phenomenal time for the Tiger Band, something its director for the last 22 years has to be proud of. And you can rest assured the Golden Band from Tigerland will be prepared to greet football fans each fall for many decades to come.